In this podcast episode, Dr. Paul Kengor discusses his book, The Devil and Karl Marx, and delves into the early life and writings of Karl Marx, shedding light on his motivations and the underlying structure of his ideology. Kengor highlights Marx's early work as a poet and playwright, revealing his fascination with dark themes and the devil. He emphasizes the importance of understanding Marx's poetic fantasies as they shaped his later economic theories and political doctrines. Karl Marx's early writings, particularly his poetry, reveal a deep fascination with dark and sinister themes, including references to the devil and themes of destruction and suffering. These early works, such as The Player and Lucifer from Milton, showcase Marx's preoccupation with the powers of darkness and his desire to challenge traditional beliefs and structures. Robert Payne, a biographer of Marx, notes that Marx saw himself as an aspiring poet, aiming to be the Goethe of his age and write the Faust of his time. Kengor explores the influence of the character Mephistopheles on Marx's worldview and ideology. Mephistopheles, a figure from Goethe's Faust, represents the adversary who opposes being itself and advocates for the cessation of existence due to the unbearable suffering inherent in life. Marx's favorite quote, "Everything that exists deserves to perish," reflects his alignment with Mephistopheles' ethos of destruction and opposition to the structure of being. This nihilistic perspective informs Marx's later calls for the abolition of various societal institutions and the radical rupture of traditional relations. In addition to his dark poetic themes, Marx's personal life was marked by disorder and dysfunction. His economic disarray, lack of personal hygiene, and reliance on others for financial support paint a picture of a man consumed by his own desires and ambitions. Marx's refusal to acknowledge paternity of his illegitimate child with Lenchen and his reliance on Engels for financial support demonstrate his disregard for traditional values and responsibilities. The disarray in Marx's personal life mirrors the chaos and destruction he sought to bring about in society through his revolutionary ideology. The podcast touches on the devastating impact of Marx's ideology on society, as seen in the communist revolutions and the subsequent suffering and destruction that followed. Marx's calls for the abolition of private property, capital, and the family reflect his desire to upend existing social structures and create a new order based on his radical vision. The podcast highlights the tragic outcomes of Marx's ideas, including the suicides of his daughters and the overall disarray and dysfunction within his own family. Kengor draws a connection between Marx's disordered personal life and his revolutionary ideology, suggesting that Marx's inner turmoil and chaos manifested in his political beliefs and actions. Marx's rejection of traditional values, his disregard for personal responsibilities, and his focus on destruction and upheaval in his personal and professional life mirror the themes of his poetry and the core tenets of his communist ideology. The podcast underscores the importance of understanding the link between Marx's personal experiences and his ideological pursuits in comprehending the full scope of his impact on history. Kengor delves into Marx's early life, highlighting his Jewish background and conversion to Christianity at a young age. He notes that Marx's family was religious, with his father converting to Lutheranism and his mother resisting his baptism. However, Marx's religious beliefs began to change during his college years, influenced by his close relationship with an atheist theology professor named Dr. Bruno Bauer. Kengor discusses Marx's early writings, mentioning a play called Ulanim, where the main character, Lucindo, embodies dark and sinister qualities. Marx's association with Bauer and their joint venture into creating a journal called Annals of Atheism further solidified his move towards atheism. Despite his professed atheism, Marx's writings continued to reflect a deep engagement with religious tropes and ideas, leading to questions about the nature of his beliefs. Kengor explores the concept of Marx having a Luciferian intellect, characterized by a desire for intellectual supremacy and a tendency towards destructive and rebellious ideologies. He draws parallels between Marx's intellectual pursuits and Lucifer's desire to overthrow established order and assert his own dominance. The conversation delves into Marx's identification with Mephistopheles, a demonic figure associated with temptation and corruption. Kengor highlights Marx's writings where he aligns himself with Mephistopheles and expresses a desire for the destruction of existing societal structures. Kengor discusses how Marx's beliefs and attitudes influenced his relationships with others, including his family, friends, and colleagues. He describes Marx as a divisive figure, often alienating those around him with his dictatorial and critical demeanor. Despite conflicting accounts of his relationships with his family and associates, there is a consistent portrayal of Marx as a contentious and challenging individual who struggled to maintain harmonious connections with others. The conversation touches on Marx's lasting legacy and influence, particularly in the realm of leftist ideology and revolutionary thought. Kengor reflects on the enduring appeal of Marx's writings, particularly the Communist Manifesto, as a rallying point for social and political movements. He notes that while Marx may not have been a traditional economist, his work served as a motivational doctrine that inspired generations of activists and revolutionaries. The conversation also touches on the concept of separating the man from his work, with Peterson raising the question of whether there should be a distinction between the products of thought and the personality of the individual. While some argue for a separation, the discussion highlights how Marx's personal beliefs and actions were intertwined with his ideology, making it difficult to separate the two. The discussion shifts to Marx's disdain for religion, labeling it as the opium of the masses, which led to the suppression of religious practices in communist countries. Peterson and Kengor challenge the narrative that religion is merely an opiate for the masses, highlighting the complexities and sacrifices inherent in religious beliefs. The discussion debunks the idea that religion offers unearned security or serves as a security blanket, pointing out the profound sacrifices and moral teachings found in religious doctrines. Kengor critiques Marxism for its hypersimplification of complex social issues and its focus on materialistic solutions to human problems. He highlights the dangers of pathological hypersimplification and the moral, self-serving nature of Marxist ideology. He also discusses the shift in modern Marxism towards cultural issues like race and gender, emphasizing the divisive nature of the victim-victimizer narrative in contemporary leftist movements. Both Peterson and Kengor reflect on the devastating impact of communism on societies and individuals, noting the profound evil and malevolence associated with Marxist regimes. They discuss the spiritual and diabolical dimensions of communism, suggesting that a deeper religious framework is necessary to understand and combat the ideology. Kengor shares his personal journey from agnosticism to a deeper exploration of religious matters prompted by the horrors of communism. The conversation touches on the concept of cultural Marxism and its infiltration into various aspects of society, including academia and popular culture. Kengor highlights the application of Marxist superstructure to issues of gender, race, and culture, leading to a divisive and polarizing narrative. He points out the unconscious adoption of Marxist frameworks by individuals who may not be aware of their complicity in perpetuating Marxist ideologies. Kengor and Peterson discuss the theological interpretation of Marxism, drawing parallels between Marx's ideology and biblical narratives like the story of Cain and Abel. They explore the role of resentment, envy, and victimhood in shaping Marxist beliefs, suggesting a deeper spiritual explanation for the allure of communism. Kengor emphasizes the need for a religious framework to properly conceptualize and address the evils of Marxism.